Hi, everybody. My name is Marvin, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Marvin.
Just for today, I am an addict. Just for yesterday, I was an addict. Just for tomorrow, I'm going to be an addict. And that is a gift, right? I want to start off by thanking the entire committee. I have been on committees like this, that puts on events like this, that puts on retreats like this, and baby, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of service. It's a lot of personalities. It's a lot of personalities. And so, thank you to the committee. Jugal and I had a conversation earlier. I thought it would be a really good idea after seeing Becky with the good hair last night. I was like, I need a spotlight for my entrance so that way everyone could see me. But then when I took a moment and I went and I stepped away and I went to go get my spirit right, and I read the Just for Today, and it talked about our egos, once so large and dominant, it can now take a back seat to recovery. And I was like, okay, maybe I don't need the spotlight. And so I'm really grateful to be here. I just said I stepped away earlier to go and get my mind right because it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of personalities, it's a lot of experience. And I went and sat at the Ark, and I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. The trees are really beautiful. Like, they're really, really tall. Like, how exciting to be here. And then the bats started coming, and I was like, okay. Maybe sitting in this archway with the bats is not for me. And so I quickly exited and went to my room where I felt safe. And so I'm really grateful to be here. I have not spent a lot of time in San Francisco or outside of the San Francisco area, so I'm really grateful to be here. It is a beautiful retreat. The grounds are really beautiful. And when I entered into this space and I saw the trees and I saw the lack of light pollution in the sky, like I was really taken aback, right? I was really taken aback because this majesty that we get to engage in our recovery and get to experience life on life's terms, and we get to not use a minute at a time, an hour at a time, a day at a time, a weekend at a time. This weekend is a gift, right? It is not lost on me what a gift it is, right? Because there was a time when I was stuck in a closet in Las Vegas and I could not get out. Right? I would sit in that closet with my headphones in because I didn't want anybody knowing that I was listening to porn. And I would put a towel underneath the door because I didn't want the light from my iPad to pollute the floor outside of the closet. And I would sit in there and I would shoot up and I would just be like, this is my life. Right? The unmanageability and powerlessness was my life, and I was okay with that, right? I was okay with living at an animalistic level, like our literature talks about, that like towards the end of my using, like I could not manage to walk 5 feet to go to the bathroom. I would pee in a towel and throw it on the floor because I just didn't want to get out of the bed. Right? I didn't want to take my hand off of my penis because it would just disrupt the experience, right? And so that's how small my life had become, right? And today my life is, I'm outside of San Francisco walking in my higher power's majesty, getting to take in the beautiful height of the trees and getting to flee from bats and getting to experience things that I've never experienced before, right? This program told me when I came in that I could have a life beyond my wildest dreams. My wildest dreams when I was using was I just wanted to be a drag queen traveling to circuit parties, and I couldn't even manage to get to the circuit party, right? So I'm so grateful that Crystal Meth Anonymous is here. I'm grateful that Narcotics Anonymous is here. I'm grateful that Alcoholics Anonymous was the foundation of which everything else has been built. Because without that, I would still be in a closet in Las Vegas, right? And so how I got here is I grew up in the Midwest. I am biracial. And so shout out to all of the Black people in this space. I am so grateful because when I walked into the rooms of recovery in Las Vegas, there were not Black people in the rooms of recovery in Las Vegas in Crystal Meth Anonymous. And so I did not see me in the rooms of Crystal Meth Anonymous in Las Vegas. Shout out to the women that are in this space this evening because I did not see them in the rooms of Crystal Meth Anonymous. Shout out to the trans folks because I did not see them either, right? And so the magic that we are all here and we're all recovering is beyond, right? And so I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up to 2 white parents because my Black dad wasn't in the picture. I grew up in the Midwest and I grew up in the middle of a cornfield and I grew up being told that I was different, right? I had no idea that I was different until you told me that I was different and I onboarded that. You called me a faggot, I onboarded that, right? You called me a sissy, I onboarded that. You told me that I walked like Shanae from Martin. I onboarded that, right? Granted, honey, tea with that ass, but okay. And so I didn't have, at the 3rd grade, I didn't have enough understanding of who I was to be able to dismantle your interpretation of who I was, right? And so I onboarded what you said, right? I was told that I was different. My 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Maybe, told me that I was different. I was super hyperactive. And so I wasn't tied to a chair. I was put in the hallway, right? I was put in the hallway. I was made to feel different. I have too much energy to be disrupting the other children. So you go sit in the hallway, right? And so in the school that I grew up in, there was not many Black kids. There was not many biracial kids. There was me and my sister, and I think another brother and sister in that school. And so I was made to feel different. I was told that I was different, right? And before I landed in New Haven, Indiana in the 3rd grade, I had traveled around because my parents were in the military. And so we were all different. We were all starting from scratch every year. And so once I finally realized that I was different because you told me so, my life got really complicated. 3rd grade Mrs. Maybe, she was very complicated. She hit me. She was very complicated, right? And so I knew that I was different because the other little boys didn't walk with their wrists like this. The other little boys didn't have the same switch that I had, right? And the other little boys, even though the melanin in my skin is pretty light, nobody else had that, right? And so I was like, wow, this is a really interesting experience. And so I started to onboard that. And as time went by, I was not particularly popular. And so in the 6th grade, when kids would pick on me, I became violent, right? And so my very first time being committed against my will, I was 12 years old. I had just turned 12. And I was committed against my will because I was violent to the kids in school, right? And my parents could not find a cocktail of medication to control my behavior, right? And so the magic is that they found help at Charter Beacon Behavioral Health Facility, and they committed me, right? Because I was a harm to myself and I was a harm to other people. And so while I was in that facility, I don't know how, but like I've had evidence of God working in my life long before I knew that there was a God working in my life. I don't know how I knew what gay was. Maybe because they called me a faggot, that could be a clue. But I just remember when I was in Charter Beacon, I was like, I need to come out of the closet. I need to let my mom and dad know that I'm gay because at this facility, they can help house me if my parents don't want me to come home, right? And so I mustered up all this courage. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have to call my mom. I'm gonna have to tell her that I'm gay. And I did it. And she said, Marvin, I know. I'm like, oh, well, girl, why didn't you tell me? That could have saved us a lot of heartache, right? And so when she said I know, that alleviated so much pressure that I had been experiencing up until that point. It didn't make me any more popular in school because there wasn't a whole lot of other faggots running around, but it made my home life a lot more peaceful, right? Because I was no longer fighting this tug of war of this insanity inside of my spirit. I was just able to just be. And my mom just let me be. And my dad just let me be, and my sister and my brother just let me be, right? I didn't have to be performative. I didn't have to say that, oh, I think I like girls, and here's my girlfriend, and like with my wrist as broken as a tree branch over there, right? Like I didn't have to put on for anyone at home, right? And it gave me the courage to go to school and be a little bit more authentic and be a little bit more transparent with the kids at school. A through line of my entire using experience is I wanted to be included in, I wanted to be a part of, and I wanted to be validated, right? Because I did not have that growing up. I did not have people that wanted to hang out with me because I was worthy of hanging out with, that I knew of. I just didn't have that. And so fast forward a number of years, like when I saw you smoking, I thought it was okay for me to smoke. When you were talking about the cocktails that you were drinking, I was like, oh, I should be having cocktails, right? And I learned this behavior of lying and manipulation and hiding and keeping secrets because my parents had a liquor cabinet and I didn't want you to know that I was drinking your clear liquid. And so I would take a sip like, ooh, I'm being so bad, look at me. And then I would just fill it back up with water, right? And so, or the lying and manipulation of finding my parents' adult films, because porn is like my first addiction, and finding my parents' adult films and VCR, putting it in the VCR and hitting the zero out so that way I could rewind or fast forward and go right back to zero and put it back and you would never know, right? Lie, control, manipulate from early, right? And so, because you thought it was a good idea to smoke, and now I think it's a good idea to smoke. Now, if you think it's a good idea to drink on the weekends, I think it's a good idea to drink on the weekends. If you think it's a good idea to drive on the interstate and smoke marijuana, I do too. You know, and I come from a very privileged place. I am blessed to be able to acknowledge that and understand what the gravity that is today. I was given a car and I didn't treat it with respect, right? Like I drove on the interstate and I would smoke weed and I would keep weed in the car, and you know, I've always worked. I'm really grateful that I've always worked. My parents made it so that like if I wanted to drive, I had to pay for the gas and I had to pay for the car insurance. In order to pay for the car insurance and the gas, I had to go to work. And in order to be able to work and to have my car, I had to have my grades to be at a certain level, right? And so there was all of these mechanisms of responsibility that were kind of baked into how I was raised. And I'm really, really grateful for that. My parents did a lot of things that I could provide a few notes and feedback for. but some of that stuff is like, it really still sits with me today, right? And so, fast forward a bit, right? Like I started to become a little bit popular because like I had a car and I had a job, which meant I had a little bit of money. And because I didn't have any self-worth or any value, because I hadn't been introduced to any spiritual principles, I would spend my money on things that you said were a good idea. So if I needed to get some tequila rose for the weekend, like cool, here's my money. Please value me. Please validate me. Please tell me that I'm worthy of hanging out with somebody so cool that is you, and take my money and buy the tequila rose and let's hang out, right? But you're not hanging out with me because I'm cool. You're hanging out with me because I'm providing you with something, right? And so here comes this neural pathway of that I need to provide in order to be valuable, right? And so fast forward, I'm 18 years old. I'm stealing money because I have to smoke crack cocaine, right? And I am stealing money because I am a manager at Wendy's and I'm doing manager voids and I'm taking all the money out of the register at the end of the night. But I don't have a problem. I'm just smoking crack at 18. Like, it's cool. Everyone smokes crack at 18. Like, it's totally fine, right? I was fortunate enough to have all of my credits where I finished school early. And so from February to the time I walked in commencement in June, I had lost 50 pounds, right? And that is a lot of weight to lose from smoking crack. A lot of weight to lose from smoking crack. And people were like, oh my God, Marvin, you look so good. You look so good. And so here's another neural pathway is now that I'm skinny, now I have value again. Right? Because I didn't have value at 215 pounds, but now that I'm 165 pounds, I have value. So the neural pathway is be skinny. It doesn't matter how you get there, be there, right? And so, and that comes back up later, which is really unfortunate. And so I was first introduced to crystal meth at 18. I loved smoking crack, but crack was not really productive, right? I don't know if you guys have smoked crack, but it's a quick up and it's a much faster down. And so I was more of a fan of cocaine at that time. And so when I was introduced to methamphetamine, this girl, God bless her, we were sitting in my friend's garage and she said, here, you have to hold the lighter under the aluminum foil and put the pin thing in your mouth and chase. I'm like, girl, there's a pile of cocaine inside. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm going inside. And so my first introduction to meth, I just thought it was so silly. I thought it was so stupid. And I was like, girl, I'm never going to have to do this again. Thank God, because this is dumb. If only that would have been true. And so I went back inside. I did the cocaine. I didn't do meth again for a really long time. And I'm grateful for that, right? But the powerlessness and unmanageability of the disease of addiction, once I have unleashed it, it doesn't matter what I take into my system, right? Because the disease of addiction doesn't care if it's meth or if it's McDonald's French fries. For me, it doesn't differentiate, right? McDonald's French fries will kill me similarly to how meth will kill me, right? And I have to be clear with who I am today. I'm an addict. It doesn't matter if it's Coke, if it's Ben & Jerry's, right? Because I will do any and everything in my power to just feel different. Because if I do not like what I'm feeling in this moment, I can go to the bodega in New York. I can go to the 7-Eleven. I can go here. I can get a honey bun. I can warm it. I can change my feelings instead of processing my feelings, instead of doing the work to understand where my feelings are coming from. It's so much easier to buy a bag, buy a honey bun, buy these things and change it, try to change it, right? But when I balloon up to 222 pounds and I look in the mirror and I hate the reflection that I see and I don't like the way that I feel in my clothes, the powerlessness and unmanageability has shown up one more time. It just isn't meth. It's honey buns and ice cream at the end of the night, right? And so I'm not confused that I'm an addict, right? And so I was like, okay, I need to maybe not smoke crack. I need to maybe not do cocaine. I want to go to school. I, like Becky, went to school to become a hairdresser. I was able to get my life together enough and not do drugs. I was not able to not drink alcohol, right? And so I went to cosmetology school and I didn't touch anything that was a controlled substance the whole time I was there. However, when I finished, I said, ooh, bitch, good for you. You finished. You should get some cocaine. You should, that will help you because you need to clean your apartment before you move to South Florida. And so in a snowstorm, I get behind the wheel because I have a bright idea. I've had a lot of bright ideas. I've had a lot of really bright ideas. And I go and I pick up the cocaine and it's February 8th, turning into February 9th. And I go get it and I'm driving back and I tap that brake just to make sure that they're still working. And I spin out on the interstate. Heart racing. Oh my God, this is so terrifying. I can't possibly continue on. But I put the car in drive and I get to my house. I do the bag of cocaine and then my girlfriend, February 9th, hey Marvin, it's your birthday. Let's go get something to eat. I want to take you to lunch. And I'm like, oh, this is unfortunate. I don't really want to do this. So I get a Greek salad, because like I don't like anything in a Greek salad, and I just push the food around, and she's like, are you hungry? I'm like, no, I'm okay, right? But this shows me when I do the work and I get into the step work and I look at the powerlessness and unmanageability experiences, and I look at the definition of insanity, and I see how I cannot show up as a friend and allow for somebody to celebrate and pour love into me. It goes back. It goes way far back. It doesn't just start when I do crystal meth. It doesn't start when I get into the rooms. It goes really far back into my behavior, right? This was in 2006. And so I was able to graduate cosmetology school. I became licensed in the state of Ohio, and then I moved to South Florida. South Florida is my coming of age story. I'm super grateful for the state of Florida. Well, I'm really grateful for the, let's be very clear, the state of South Florida, because that took this little queer kid who knew nothing about a gay community, and I input myself into Wilton Manors, and I was able to get gay gas, I got gay groceries, I got gay coffee, I got gay everything. And that for me was something that was so transformative in my life experience, because I didn't know that it was possible. It was only something that I had seen on TV, right? My two queer references, be that as it may, it was Queer as Folk, and I was like, people don't actually live like that. Nobody's having sex on a dance floor. Well, we found out that's not true. And Will and Grace, those were my two frames of references, right, growing up. And so getting to live in Wilton Manors and getting to see the dance floor with all these beautiful people dancing, and getting to like have gay friends that I did not get to have in high school growing up. It just was really, really transformative. And then I worked on South Beach, and that was really amazing. Also, this was the time of Anna Kournikova dating Enrique Iglesias, and she would come into the salon, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so cool. Oh my God, I'm so cool. I get to shampoo her hair. How fierce. And so the seed for success was planted, right? But so was the seed of the disease of addiction. I would rather go to Boom in Wilton Manors and Georgie's Alibi to get the $3 Long Island's than to have my wits about me and go to work and be a student of my craft. I was much more interested on dancing on the go-go box and hitting people in the head and moving them off the box so that way I could dance by myself and look at myself in the mirror. I was much more interested in that and going to work smelling like vodka than being a student of my craft, right? So I left the salon because the powerlessness and unmanageability one more time showed up, that I don't want to do this. I want to do this over here. And so that offset a bit of chaos, right, in my life a little bit. And I was off my medication. I was angry. We did a workshop earlier, and it asked me to think about a time that I was really angry. And it was when my ex-boyfriend came to San Francisco, and I found out that he had been sleeping with other people, and I decided to break his printer while he was on the phone and rearrange his flights so that way he could come home. And I told him, I said, if you don't come home, all of your shit is going to be in the canal behind the apartment. And so I was not mentally stable, right? And the cocaine and the alcohol didn't really help like I thought it would with my mental stability. And so I went to go see a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist said, hey, Marvin, like, are you suicidal? I said, I don't do anything to make myself upset. Jeff needs sugar in his insulin. And so one more time I was committed, right? Because the psychiatrist said, we can do this one of two ways. You can either go home and pack a bag and meet me at Fort Lauderdale Hospital, or you can go by police escort. Which one would you like? Because I had threatened to kill someone. Oops. So maybe don't do that when you're sitting in the chair. But I was able to go there, and I was able to be honest, and I was able to get on the medication that I needed so that way I would not be sitting in prison right now for putting sugar in someone's insulin. And I'm really grateful for that psychiatrist, right? And so I was able to get out of that relationship because that relationship was very toxic. I was a very toxic person. I was a very violent person, putting my hands on people the way that they don't belong to be put on other people, right? And so, and then I moved to South Florida, like further south, that was Wilton Manors, and then I moved to Miami, and then I moved around a lot. I did a lot of geographics because I could not be stable. It was your fault that you caused me to drink. It was your fault that I had to jump off of the balcony because you were trying to protect me and I needed to go to the bar to dance. It was your fault that I had to be committed again because I took an entire bottle of lithium after drinking all night, and you told me that you didn't love me. And so since you don't love me, one more time, I don't have any value in myself and who I am as a human being. I don't love me either then, and I'm gonna just drink this bottle. So one more time I was committed, right? And so because of my mental instability and because of my drug addiction and my desire to feel different and drink and to party and to just experience life, like I'm from the Midwest, I should be able to dance and just be unbothered. Because of that inability to see the wreckage that I was causing, I started to move from 2007 to 2010. I moved every 9 months, right? And that's a lot of moving. It's a lot of moving. It's a lot of moving. It's a lot of instability. And it's a lot of me changing location so that way I can then take advantage of a whole new demographic of people. Right? Because I did not know until I came into this program that wherever Marvin went, that's where Marvin was. I had no idea. I didn't know that they had meth in Biloxi, Mississippi. But guess what? I found it. I did not know that they had meth in Orlando, Florida. But I found it. Somebody back there knew that there was meth in Orlando. I had no idea that there was meth in Las Vegas, but I found it. And so, because I didn't know that wherever I went, there I was. I love to do meth. I love that shit, right? And I have to be very honest. I'm not confused. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh my God, it just was so terrible. Oh my God, I really hated it. No, bitch, I fucking love meth, right? If I didn't love meth, I probably would not need this program. Let's be very clear. I love to use. I used to live, and I lived to use, right? What I did not love was day 4, when I'm pulling up the carpet in my closet, because I swear to you, there's a teleportation device in there. And the people in my apartment are moving from inside to outside through that device. That's what I didn't love. What I didn't love was that at any moment during this video that I'm watching, the FBI is going to repel into my apartment. I did not love that. What I didn't love is the unmanageability of the sores in my mouth because I refused to drink any water. What I did not love was trying to eat ramen noodles and it feeling like swallowing cinder blocks. And that's what I didn't love. The chaos and the unmanageability and the complete disassociation from reality, I enjoyed that, right? I was fine with that. And I have to be honest about that in this program, right? Because like, if I am not honest about my lived experience and what I find to be appealing, I'm doomed to repeat it. And on September 29th of 2013, it was my darkest moment. And I never want to experience that again. That's why when I came in on September 30th of 2013, I've been here ever since, right? And so, that's not my first white key tag, that's my third, but like when I came in then I stayed. And so the unmanageability has always been so apparent to me that it's okay. It's okay that it was unmanageable. It's okay that my life was a mess. It's okay that I moved every 9 months. I was fine with that. I was fine with that because I didn't know anything else. right? And when I moved to Las Vegas and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna improve my quality of life. And like I was talking about just a moment ago, like I didn't know that wherever I went, there I am. And so when I found meth, I had a bright idea. Remember, I had a lot of those. I had a lot of bright ideas. And so I was like, oh, my dad, my biological dad that came into the picture, I'm like, oh, he's having a hard time with money. I bet if he sells meth, he could make some money, I think, right? And so I mentioned this harebrained idea to my friend, and he's like, oh, I know somebody, right? And I said, oh, great. Why don't you give me a little bit? So then that way I can tell my dad, like, if this is good or not, right? Like, let me sample the wares, shall we? And my dad never got that bag, needless to say. And he never saw any meth, needless to say. And it sent me off running, right? And I come to Crystal Meth Anonymous, I come to Narcotics Anonymous because my life before I got here was a train wreck. It was full of insanity, and insanity that I found to be appealing to a certain degree, but it was full of that. And I come here because a day at a time, I have learned how to not stick a needle in my arm. I have learned how to not stick a shard up my ass. I've learned how to not put a bottle to my lips. I've learned these things on how not to do it a day at a time being here, right? I've learned how to be able to sit and watch the bats, as scary as they are, and appreciate that, like, they're actually there, right? The shadows that I'm seeing are actually shadows flying by. And my quality of life has shifted, right? My quality of life has shifted. And that's what I'm so grateful for. That's why I show up, because the powerlessness and unmanageability looks different today than the powerlessness and unmanageability of 2013. Right? The insanity looks different today than it did in 2013. I can turn things over today, right, that I could not turn over in 2013, right? I have not put my hands on anyone in over 12 years, right? I can keep my hands to myself. I have not had to go to a domestic violence class and almost go to jail because I was using the night before, and I'm carrying around a bag of monsters, so that way when I'm falling asleep and they're just like, what's going on? I'm just like, oh, I'm tired. Not that I'm coming down, right? I can turn things over. You can say something sideways to me. Sometimes I will comment. Sometimes I do have a rebuttal, right? Because I'm not perfect. We're not saints, right? That's what this whole thing is about. We're not saints. I'm not a saint. I don't claim to be a saint. Sometimes, bitch, you'll get cussed the fuck out, right? It will happen, and it has happened. And sometimes I feel fine about it. And sometimes I absolutely don't, right? And that spiritual hangover that I get to feel when I've acted poorly, right? That is a gift of this program, right? Because, like, I was fine putting my hands on people before, right? I was fine throwing things and destroying your property before, right? That doesn't feel so appropriate today. And that's something that I had to learn in this program. I come to meetings and I get to be of service, and I allow other people to be of service to me because I had no idea how to live life on life's terms when I got here. No idea. I knew how to do things Marvin's way. I knew what self-will looked like. It was whatever I wanted to do. Jackie, my sister, if you are asking for your DVD player and I'm busy masturbating and watching porn, no, you may not have it back. I'm busy. Bitch, leave me alone, right? However, it was not my DVD player. It was hers. Right? And so what happened in that experience is because of the powerlessness and unmanageability and my unwillingness to look at the disease of addiction, and I'm just fucking in it. I'm just in it, the disease. I threw the DVD player to the ground because of self-will, and I stepped on it so that way she couldn't be able to use it. And I said, and I hope the baby inside of you dies. Right? That is the type of animal that I become when I'm using, right? Insane, unmanageable, not a spiritual principle to be found, right? Thank God he didn't, and my nephew is 15 today, but 15? Yeah, 15. Yeah, yeah. Uncle Marvin's gotten old. Auntie Marvin. And so he's alive and well, but the self-will, right, that me as an addict is so accustomed to engaging in, that is the person that I am when I'm using, right? And so I come to meetings, I come to be of service, I have sponsees, I have a sponsor, I stay in this process, I read the literature because I don't want to be that Uncle Marvin, right? I want to be the Uncle Marvin that next week I get to go take him to his homecoming game in Las Vegas, right? I get to be the Uncle Marvin that brushes my niece's hair, all of her hair, and puts it in beautiful braids, and be like the Uncle Marvin that gets to poke fun and do silly things and make little TikToks, which I don't even know how to make TikToks, and they're showing me. Like, that's the Uncle Marvin that I get to be. I get to be the brother that in the amends process, after my sister said that she needed some money and I sent it to her and it was taking her a really long time to give it back to me, the amends process is, hey, you rescued me twice of your own time. You came to pull me out of Miami because I could not manage my own life. You pulled me out. You know what? Thank you for your love. Thank you for your kindness. Don't worry about the money. I got it. Don't worry about it. Right? The amends process is the same son that was doing drag in Miami and running all over and causing havoc and calling my mom a bitch and hanging up the phone and telling her I never want to speak to her again. That person got to make an amends, and I got to be on stage in drag with my mom at a charity event, and she got to see the difference, right? She got to see the addict and the one with the bulging eyes and doing the circuit party thing, and she also got to see the person doing drag for charity. Right? That's the amends process. The amends process is my mom wanted to go to Paris and my dad said no, and I bought her a ticket, right? That's the amends process, right? I'm grateful to the rooms of recovery because I, no matter what, get to live life on life's terms, and life is not always rainbows and motherfucking butterflies. Sometimes it is a shit sandwich, right? It is a shit sandwich, and it is foul, and it is ugly, and it is painful, right? But no matter what, I have to be very clear about that, right? Because I'm an addict that can find a reason to do anything that I fucking want to do. I love self-will. Marvin's way is the best way. And if you don't believe me, ask me, I'll tell you, right? And so I have to understand that self-will is what got me here, right? And I'm grateful for the Rooms of Recovery because I get to come into the meetings and I get to hear your experience and your strength and your hope, and I get to pocket that, right? Because it may not be applicable today, right? I'll never forget, I was on a meeting during the pandemic, and this woman, she was on the meeting, her father had died. I was like, wow, that's pretty spectacular. She's on a meeting and her father died earlier today. That's kind of crazy, you know? Fast forward a week or so, she's on the meeting, her mother had died, right? And I'm like, wow, that is insane. All while her daughter is going through cancer, her teenage daughter going through cancer, right? And then a few months later, her daughter dies, right? And she's on a meeting. I'm like, wow, that is so crazy. Who does that? Who just goes to meetings when their family just passes away, right? Fast forward to 2022, and I'm standing at a Dunkin' Donuts, and I get a phone call from my sister, and my dad had committed suicide, right? And I was confused. I was sad, I was lost, there's so much that goes into a suicide, right? that the family, the people left behind, are just left puzzled in trying to put the pieces back together, right? And I didn't know what to do, but thanks to Kat being an exemplary member of the program and showing up and talking about her feelings and talking about what it was that she was going through, I went to a meeting. I raised my hand. I talked about my feelings. I talked about what it was that I was going through. I cried in that space because someone else demonstrated to me what we do in the rooms of recovery, right? Just a few weeks ago in August, I've had this little chihuahua since she was 4 months old. Imani was with me on my last day using, in the car with me. She was with me in my apartment as I would tell her to go and chase the shadow people, and she would run around and grab toys, right? Imani was with me for 14 years. And in August, Imani fell over, and I was sleeping, and I could hear her not being able to get back up, right? And the quality of life that I gave her in her first couple of years was trash, right? And I committed to myself when her hips started to go out that the end of her life was not going to be the same, right? I committed to myself that it did not matter how painful the decision would be, that I would make it if it got there, right? And I came home from a work trip, and I fell asleep on the couch, and Dwayne is in the bedroom, and I wake up to the scratching because she can't get herself to stand back up, right? Dwayne wakes up the next morning, and I say, it's time. It's time to take her. It's time. Because what I've learned in this program is that, I can be a person of integrity. I can be a man of my word. And I said that I was not going to let her suffer. I wasn't going to let her just dwindle. I wasn't going to let her just fall off, right? That I can show up for her today because, I'm a person in recovery, and I've learned some spiritual principles in this process, right? And we took her, and we made the decision, and so it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies in this process. It's not always going to be warm hugs and sex parties and circuit music and retreats. It's not always going to be that, right? Life on life's terms is father suicide. It is. Life on life's terms is putting your dog down. It is. Life on life's terms is my biological dad, the one that I finally built a relationship with, dying when I had 7 or 8 months clean, right? That's life on life's terms. And no matter what, I don't have to use. Just for today, I don't have to use, right? Life on life's terms is also because I came into this program and I have learned that I don't have to take the first one, because the first one is the problem. It's not day 4. That's not the problem. It's the first one. If I don't take the first one, I can dream about something, right? I can dream about maybe I can go back to school and become an esthetician on top of being a cosmetologist, right? It can be oh my God, there is so much money in injectables. I can go to school to become and get my associate's degree to become a registered nurse, so that way I can put shit in people's faces legally. Life on life's terms is that I can answer the call when they say, hey, Marvin, would you do us the honor and come to Finding Fellowship and share your experience, strength, and hope? Wow, what? Because I am not a saint, right? When you look up the definition of saint, I'm not virtuous, right? I am not patient. And your definition of kind, it just depends on what your definition of kind is. If I fit that bill, right? But what I am is committed to the rooms of recovery, because my life would not look like this if it wasn't for the people who came in before me that turned their will and their life over to the care of their higher power and started to follow some spiritual principles. My life is what it is today because I came in here and you guys told me that I was a mess and that if I pick up some literature, I read some literature and I write some things down on a piece of paper and I get honest with you and I try to do my best to live authentically, my quality of life can change. And my quality of life has changed drastically, right? I have an amazing partner that I love and like, which is great. And he loves and likes me, which is also great, right? I get to be an amazing son. I get to be an amazing brother. I get to be an amazing uncle. I get to be a great friend. I get to be a good sponsor. I get to be an example of what life can be if you no longer want to use drugs, right? And if you want to use drugs, that's fine. Do it, right? This program is not going to work for everyone, right? And it's also not going to work for the people who want it. It's going to work for the people who work for it. And I am not confused about that. That's why I work my ass off in this program, right? Because the person who walked in that was afraid and driving my car all around Las Vegas and had called my mom and told her that I had injected chemical grade evil and I didn't know how to get it out of my body, I never, ever want to return to that person. The person who came in on September 30th and was like shaking and like looking around like, oh my God, are they following me? Like, do you guys see them? I don't want to be that guy. And today I'm not that guy. And the way to not return to being that guy is not pick up the first one. And so I don't pick up the first one. Because I don't pick up the first one, I get to have dreams. I get to chase dreams. I get to achieve dreams. And I'm just really fucking grateful that I didn't know how to live life on life's terms. And in this process, I've gotten to learn how to live life on life's terms. And while it's not perfect every single day, and the only thing that I do perfectly is not pick up a day at a time, life is pretty amazing. And I'm really, truly grateful. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Marvin. The seventh tradition states that every CMA group ought to be fully self-sufficient.